A number of people who do business at the Virginia Beach courthouse will be affected by this. The courthouse is enhancing security. It's not directed so much at courthouse staff or the general public, but it will affect those who visit the courthouse on a regular basis for work or to volunteer. Robert Boyd explains the changes.
Well, for years, there was a group of people who were exempt from security here at the Virginia Beach courthouse, mainly attorneys. But starting on Monday, some of those folks may be required to be randomly screened.
The public has always had to empty their pockets and walk through the metal detector before entering the Virginia Beach courthouse, while attorneys and volunteers could walk right in unchecked, but not anymore.
We trust you, but we're going to verify it on some random checks and make sure that the building's as safe as we can possibly make it.
Chief Deputy Rocky Holcomb of the Virginia Beach Sheriff's Office says no specific incident led to the rule change. They're just trying to be proactive.
And making sure that we stay ahead of the curve so that we don't have to catch up to the curve when it's too late.
Holcomb said most security breaches are accidental to begin with.
And sometimes folks get in a hurry, they're last minute, they forget to take something out of their pocket. They're not trying to necessarily circumvent the rules, but they do come in with something they shouldn't.
However, the fact is, an average of 2,500 visitors enter the courthouse every day, making it the busiest and most vulnerable building at the Municipal Center.
You got folks who come in here and their whole lives can be changed through a court hearing, through a procedure, and so we just want to make sure that we're on top of it and make this building and citizens safe as we can.
The wait to get into the courthouse for the general public isn't expected to increase too much, but as always, the Sheriff's Office asks all visitors to give themselves extra time. In Virginia Beach, Robert Boyd, 13 News Now.